mileage and heat a thermometer with indicator lights.
I suppose the car will stand up to it.
In the world, Morris offer this latest product.
What's this chap doing? Right in the middle of the road.
£5 for the fixed head saloon.
Get a good car. That's the secret of it.
Graveyard of the British roads. What tragic histories are remembered in these battered scraps of metal? Memorials of death and bereavement, of maimed and crippled lives.
Well, what can you expect with cars speeding the way they do? Don't seem to stop for anything these days as long as they get there. Tearing over crossings, overtaking on corners.
The people who were so-called road hogs, oh yes, they were extremely bad drivers, and temperamentally they had not got the right view towards driving.
You'll never stop accidents while people are allowed to go jaywalking all over the streets the way they do.
I used to stop at the Black Horse to have me dinner, and there was always a couple of pints there before I went on any further. So drinking and driving doesn't come into it with regards to them days.
There's plenty young chaps on motorcycles, frightens me most. You can't let the kids out of your sight a minute.
50 miles an hour I've seen them go along this road, rattling along.
In 1939, road deaths reached a peacetime high of 8,272.
He'll come through all right, but he'll always be lame, I'm afraid. Walked out in front of a lorry.
He done it about half a dozen times, and I want myself shoot on, so I shot on, and like a mug, I pulled the window down to give him a go. He beat me to it, he put his fist through the window and hit me in the chops.
Every day of the year, about 400 people are injured on our roads, very many of them hospital cases. And every night, there are nearly 20 new road casualties in the mortuaries. Nearly 20 every night of the year.
War was waged on careless drivers using road safety propaganda like this. Early motorists were all regarded as road hogs.
People bought a car, taught themselves to drive, and off they went. And inexperience caused quite a lot, I'm sure, of road accidents.
So did speed. Cars had no speedometers, but the police vigorously enforced the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit.
What's the matter? I haven't run over anyone.
Wait for the sergeant.
Enormous hostility existed between the police and the automobilist. Beneath this reconstructed hilarity, the motor car symbolised an unusual class war between wealthy road hogs, working-class cops, and upper-crust magistrates.
The young bloods, you know, that used to, in an earlier age, would ride horses like madmen, and they drove cars like madmen.
In 1908, Kenneth Graham's Wind in the Willows gave us Mr. Toad. He embodied all the freedom-seeking, speed-obsessed tendencies of the early road hog. The Toad was having breakfast in his favourite pub when he heard a motor pull in. The car stood, gleaming and quite unattended, in the middle of the yard. The Toad circled it, inspecting, criticising, musing deeply. Does this sort of car start easily? The engine roared into life. The car devoured the street and leapt forth on the high road. The poetry of motion, the real way to travel, the only way to travel. Toad was Toad once more. Toad the terror, Toad the traffic queller, the lord of the lone trail. He chanted as he flew along, reckless of what might come to him.
£5 and 12 shillings and sixpence costs.
I haven't got it. I've only got £4 on me.
You will stay in custody until you get the balance.
In the 1920s, road hogs were recognised as a small but dangerous minority. There were no traffic police and few rules. When Fred Blackman went to get his licence in 1928, it was a piece of cake.
I went in and asked for a driving licence, and he just said, what sort you want? I said, well, where I work, we've got all sorts of vehicles. I said, and sometimes I'm asked to drive a big one, sometimes a little one. He said, you better have all groups, and I had all groups from then onwards.
I first sneaked into driving at about 1926, and 25 or 26, and then, of course, we were faced with gravel surface roads, much the same as we're standing on now. Very few tar macadam roads. In the cities, there were either wood blocks, such as in the city of London, very quiet, very smooth, until you get horse manure all over them and a shower of rain, and then everything skidded all over the place.
See, with the back wheel brakes, you've got one set of linings for your handbrake and a set of linings for your foot brake. So if you want a spectacular skid, what these kids have got nothing on it now. You put the handbrake on and slam a foot brake on and round you go. I went round 3 times in Hendon Broadway once and straightened up and carried on.
More than ever, of course, vehicles with high pressure tyres, narrow, very little tread, nobody bothered about the tread depth, and rear wheel brakes only. Front wheel brakes, of course, were dangerous then. The concept was that they were dangerous, so much so we put a red triangle on those cars that had a front wheel brake.
It hit the tram lines and over it went. And of course the governor was a bit upset about it, as naturally. And he was telling me all the damage I'd done. And the cop was after me because he reckoned I'd done it on purpose. And I said, no. But he was going to nick me, but I got out of it.
I used to drive everywhere that I went as fast as I could. And in fact, I think the local police had their eye on me, so that if they'd caught me, I might not have got into the police.
Ted Tier joined the police as a beat constable in 1928. Though there were now 2 million vehicles on the road, there were still no traffic cops.
By 1930, sufficient mayhem was caused on the road for the politicians to bring in a cure-all road traffic act, called the Road Traffic Act 1930, of course, and that brought in an immense amount of legislation to control and enhance use of the roads, not just motorists, but all use.
One of the first steps for safety was the painting of white lines in the centre of the roads and around corners. This proved so successful that it has been adopted on all the main roads, and various speeds from 10 to 30 miles per hour were imposed. These have now been replaced by a common speed limit of 30 miles per hour in all built-up areas. This brought with it the speed cop, probably a necessary evil, but not always operating with the tact and discretion we should like to see. Belisha beacons safeguard pedestrians when crossing roads.
At one time, we were shaken to the core to think we couldn't cross the blooming road where we chose, but we couldn't. And the motorist, of course, was felt victimised because he had to stop to allow pedestrians to cross in front of him.
Remember that pedestrians have the right of way on an uncontrolled crossing, so stop for them.
They come out the fish and chip shop. I scattered their fish and chips. That was on a zebra crossing, but I didn't hang about. I went on because I knew I hadn't hit them.
Don't barge over the crossing and scatter them.
And then, of course, came the final insult to motorists, a driving test. Fancy, motorists that had previously been told, get in there, push that pedal down, pull that lever, now being told it must take training and a test before we allow you to drive. 1936.
L, said the learner. When you first start driving, it makes the roads feel and look like this. L, say I. It's nothing to how the road might appear if you make a mistake. Depress the clutch, into first gear, and the great adventure has started.
Elwyn Reed's enthusiasm for motoring started in 1930. She was to become one of the first women to run a driving school.
The instructors learnt how to teach the people to pass the test by trial and error.
Now, what are you doing over there? This way, please.
It was quite easy to get through a driving test in those early days.
It's a great day when the L is taken off, and you can leave your garage, with a good lookout to help you, confident in your ability to take the open road. But taking the road does not mean all of it. Now, sir, why do you keep to the middle when you're only traveling slowly? That chap behind wants to pass, and he'll try driving through on the near side. That's better. Keep well towards the curb and let him pass who will. Road signs provide employment for sign makers, but that's not the only reason they're there.
It was in the shape of a T, and people would go slowly up to this sign and then go dribbling across. And you'd say to them, "Why did you do that? What did the sign say?" Oh, the sign said, "Halt at major road ahead." "But you haven't halted, have you?" "Well, there was nothing coming." Well, it didn't say all that, did it?
Again, when the green shows, look for the chap who tries to beat the opposite amber. And to him we would say, wait for it in future. A life on the road, taking risks like these, may be a gay one, but it'll be a short one as well. Take things slowly, and remember the old saying, it's better to be late in this world than early in the next.
In spite of all the legislation, the accident rate continued its relentless rise. The trouble was that everyone blamed everyone else, and no one thought it would happen to them.
Here, take these. Anyone would think we were off to a fire or something. The whole afternoon before us.
No, we haven't. It starts at 2:30 and it's 2:45 now.
Well, now what are we waiting for?
Nothing, my love. Here we go.
Don't race, George, please.
Race? Have you ever seen me racing?
George!
Oh, how could I see him? Now, that really wasn't my fault. That car was parked right on the crossing. You get pinched for that. Look at that lot. No wonder kids get killed.
You up?